If you're feeling stuck, you don't need more motivation. You need a set of rules, because the version of you making decisions at 9 a.m. after a workout, a good night's sleep, a good meal, is not the same version of you making decisions at 3:47 p.m., 8:14 p.m., 11:59 p.m. after the stress, the pressure, the anxiety, the conflict, the exhaustion, and 12 hours of putting out fires has continued to accumulate. And if you don't have rules in place to protect yourself from the worst versions of yourself, those versions will eventually take over, hijacking the steering wheel of your day, decisions, and destinations. And this is exactly how high performers slowly drift off their intended path and into a destination of burnout, into inconsistency, sabotage, into becoming somebody they barely recognize. Those operating at the highest levels, they aren't more disciplined than you. They simply stopped negotiating with themselves. And they did so by creating rules to protect themselves from themselves. Hey, listen, let me be clear. You know what to do to achieve your goal. So why aren't you doing it? Welcome back to another episode of the Unstuck High Performer Podcast. This is the show for the high performers who know that they are capable of so much more, yet feel stuck, underperforming relative to their potential. My name is Paul Salter. I'm a high-performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach for CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs, and ambitious professionals just like you. And my goal in every single conversation here on the show is to help you identify and eliminate the invisible resistance that's keeping you stuck beneath your next level of success. I'm excited for today's conversation. We've got a lot to discuss. I had a lot of fun organizing stories, notes, all of the key points that I want to share with you. As always, have something handy to take notes on or with. A lot of information. We're going to move quick. Let's dive in. And really, I'd like to begin with the core theme, one of the underlying premises that I want you to clearly grasp as we navigate the conversation. And it's simply this: the most successful founders, leaders, professionals, owners, they have a clear list of rules that they abide by to protect themselves from themselves, which allows them to be as effective, efficient, clear, and aligned as possible, which you and I both know accelerates progress. The reason you're feeling stuck right now is you're spending too much time in the gray area. And that allows you, or rather allows your emotional self to take over and make decisions that ultimately prove to be costly and counterproductive. And I wonder already, where do you know during the day-to-day you're spending too much time in the gray area? You know, what I found in my 17 years of coaching is a lot of people feel that it's one of their strengths. It's something they're proud of, spending so much time in the gray, being able to remain locked into this reactive mode, putting out fires. Yet what I've also seen is just how destructive that pattern is. And I've also seen how effective and how significantly impactful it is to create a set of black and white rules to protect your clarity, your energy, and your peace, ultimately perpetuating your ascension to next level success. So let's talk about it. And I have an imagination you're going to really hear yourself and what I share with you, some of these stories, some of these examples, there is so much pain in living without self-protecting rules. You are an emotional being. You are going to feel a variety of emotions, A through Z, in any given day, during any given meeting, any given hour. And if you continue to operate without rules, or if you currently don't have a list of high-performing rules that you're operating by, I have an imagination that every day you're waking up with great intentions. Yet as the day progresses, so too does feelings of overwhelm, exhaustion, stress, anxiety, versions of you, emotions that continue to hijack the steering wheel of your day decisions and actions. So you constantly find yourself stuck in a pattern of overcommitting, saying yes when you mean no, abandoning key routines and rituals, procrastinating important work, reacting emotionally, numbing, whether it be through doom scrolling, food, alcohol, drugs, distractions, sacrificing sleep, rest, recovery, and living just in a continuous cycle of, I'll start over again tomorrow. I'll try again on Monday. And over time, the real pain of this pattern, it isn't just inconsistency. It's the gradual erosion of self-trust. Because deep down, you know that you're capable of more. You know what to do. You've proven your potential before. It's how you got to this level of success in the first place. Yet, you keep watching yourself drift further and further away from the person you want to become. And that creates frustration, guilt, resentment, internal conflict, quiet shame, and ultimately burnout. I know it gets worse. You begin feeling stuck, trapped between two particular identities. The person you know you could be, and the person that your current behaviors continue to reinforce. And as you continue drifting on this path, that exhaustion becomes much more than simply physical fatigue. It becomes emotional exhaustion from constantly negotiating with yourself. Every single day feels heavier because nothing is decided. Everything becomes a debate, a temptation, a negotiation, a willpower battle, relying on motivation. Well, guess what? Motivation comes and goes like a flash of lightning. You cannot rely on motivation alone to get to your next level of success. And this is why the most successful individuals, founders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs, high-level executives and salespersons have a set of high-performing rules that they abide by. Not because they're rigid, but because they understand something that most people learn too late. If you don't create structure or a set of rules to protect yourself from the lowest forms, emotional versions of yourself, those emotional versions will eventually hijack the steering wheel of not only your day and actions, your destination, and sabotage all of the success you've been working towards. And a lot of examples of client stories come to mind as I was preparing the notes for this show. And one in particular is a professional poker player. Has had a hell of a run the last few years. And as you can imagine, just like you listening may be able to have complete freedom over setting and creating your schedule, so did this client. When he wakes up, when he goes to sleep, he knows more or less what tournaments he's playing in and when those tournaments begin. But if he's playing poker between 6 and 8 hours a day, he has 16 to 18 hours where he gets to do what he wants when he wants. And what we were finding as we made a commitment together to push, to really get to the next level, that next tier of buy-ins, to sharpen up his game for live in-person tournament play, in addition to the online tournaments he was successfully navigating, we started to realize he struggled. He had zero structure. And what ultimately crept in at first gradually, but then more pronounced and consistently as we worked harder at this goal of getting to that next tier, was he would randomly decide to smoke, randomly decide to numb, to avoid, to cope. And by smoke, I mean weed, THC. And nothing wrong with that, except we quickly and early identified that every time he did not follow through on the non-negotiables he set for himself: meditation, going to the gym, spending time studying and reading something completely separate from poker. Every time he did not smoke, he executed effectively. The big challenge was smoking was a part of his identity. It's just something he did, something he had done for a while. And candidly, it was something present as he began to have more and more success to get him to where he was at that moment in his poker playing career. What got him there, however, wasn't necessarily what was going to get him to the next level. And what we were able to begin creating was a set of rules. And some of these rules, and they've evolved and they've become his own language and adapted for his lifestyle preferences and commitments to his goals. He wasn't able to smoke until he executed his minimum non-negotiables for the day: gym, meditation, study, reading, self-care, time with friends. He wasn't able to smoke on certain days of the week. Just like I've helped clients put boundaries, rules, we're going to use them a bit interchangeably today, in place around alcohol. I had a client of mine who right now is a successful wealth and asset manager with a small team. He also has an app that's about to go live to the market that is going to just do an incredible job. He's also forming a partnership with a couple of other financial advisors that's going to bring in, more clients, more income, have a bigger impact, exponentially expanding his ecosystem. He loves to have a drink or two. He's a social drinker. He keeps it for the most part in check. But as you can imagine, one of the primary ways he's grown and scaled his business at large is by being social, building relationships. And it's challenging when you're, really good friends with your neighbors who you see every day. Your parents and siblings visit frequently. Out-of-town friends come in often. There's all of these moments to enjoy a cold one with a friend or a dear family member. Yet what we were finding is it was just wrecking his sleep, his energy, his clarity, his focus. By the way, all things he knew, all things that were validated and reinforced every time he looked at his whoop band and assessed his data, his scores, and everything that was going on compared to the nights he did not drink. And again, we had to have some good, candid, honest conversations about what role he wanted alcohol to play in his life. What impact was it having on his day-to-day? And as he was putting more on his plate to get to that next level, we had to get clear on what is he willing to let go of versus what is he unwilling to let go of. And we could put some rules in place. We're only drinking if this circumstance is present. Somebody is visiting, it's a holiday, or we're only drinking on Friday or Saturday. That way, the bulk of his work week, his zone of genius where he needs to be most efficient, effective, clear, and present, remained unbothered, unfazed, unimpacted by the version of him that wanted to enjoy life, enjoy a couple of drinks with his dear friends and loved ones. These rules helped protect him, putting him in the best position possible to succeed. And I could go on, and I'm sure I'll share more, but that's what I'm getting at here is you need rules in place, because one of the main points, and I want you to write this down, is that the rules you create for yourself, or rather the rules that you follow, knowingly or unknowingly, the rules that aren't yours or are yours, they ingrain your identity. The rules you follow right now are a reflection of who you are and the person you're becoming. And there are many mistakes that people make when it comes to setting, creating, and following these rules. But what I need you to first and foremost understand is at the end of the day, the rules are designed to protect you from the sleep-deprived version of you, the overwhelmed version of you, the anxious version of you, the burnt out or ego-driven version of you. You need rules that allow you as much opportunity as possible to be at your best. I mean, think about it like this. Imagine giving your most exhausted, emotional, impulsive self unrestricted access to your Amazon account at 1 a.m. What would happen? I imagine it would be a quick cycle of impulse purchases. I probably have like hundreds of items saved in my cart in the save for later section. That's crazy. I digress. If that situation were to play out, dozens of impulse purchases, I imagine, would be executed, followed by immediate regret, yet then short-term emotional relief, followed by long-term consequences. And that's exactly how you're running your life right now without any rules in place. You're allowing temporary emotional states to make permanent or long-lasting decisions. Having a set of rules prevents temporary emotions from hijacking long-term goals. Now, something noteworthy that high performers do is first and foremost, they have a set of rules. And we're going to get into that. We'll talk some tactics. We'll really discuss how to build these rules. But something also noteworthy that the best of the best do is they create rules that most people are too afraid to create. Look, society at large is attempting to condition you to be average. Average, specifically here in the States, is overweight, unhappy, stressed, anxious, and broke. Now, fortunately for you, you're not average. You are listening to a podcast, you're picking up what I'm putting down, this messaging, my podcast here, the wonderful guest I have has resonated with you, it's attracted you, which means you are trending further and further away from average. However, the uphill battle you climb is that you are not wired to thrive. You are wired to survive. Survive in this case meaning fit in, to be accepted, to belong, and to connect with average, with ordinary, with the common folk, if you will. So that's an invisible uphill battle you're constantly fighting. And those lower, primal, emotionally charged versions of you are rooted in going backwards, regressing to average, ordinary, those lower operating levels and states. Elite performers do something different, where an average performer is going to conform to societal expectations, workplace norms, hustle culture, people pleasing, accessibility. You know, those real estate agents, it drives me crazy. If you're a real estate agent, listen up. You don't need to be accessible 24/7. You don't need to be taking calls and emailing at 11:30 at night. Fucking get some sleep so you're clear-headed tomorrow, can rock and roll. Have rules, have structure, have boundaries. Elite performers ask different questions. What actually produces my best work? Like, when during the day are you most effective? And what are the triggers, the routines that allow you to feel clear-headed, sharp, focused, energized, present, locked in? What protects your energy? High performers are incredibly clear on what gives them energy and what rapidly depletes them of energy. What keeps you emotionally regulated? Exercise, sauna, cold plunge, meditation, breath work. High performers are incredibly clear on those trigger steps, those tools and routines that allow them to remain emotionally resilient rather than emotionally fragile. What allows me to think clearly? What helps me sustain success long term? When they get clarity and answers around these questions, they use that data, that information to create rules. Because the strongest, most successful, high performing people do not trust their emotions in the moment. They trust the systems, the set of rules they've created beforehand. And another way to think about rules is as proactive, made for you decisions ahead of time. And a quick example, and this is something candidly I've struggled with. I enjoy a good drink. Love me a good margarita, an old fashioned. For whatever reason, alcohol and my body do not get along, do not agree with each other. I mean, literally within 15 or 20 minutes of having a sip, it's so sad. Or is it? I don't know. But of having a sip of alcohol, I get incredibly congested. My nose starts to run. And eventually, if I push through that, I get a headache. I sleep absolutely terribly. But for a while, there's been this constant teetering, if I'm being candid and honest, waffling back and forth. Do I drink? Do I not? Do I drink during certain occasions? And I have not been perfect. I've been through that cycle of, letting an emotion take over, trying to live in the moment, trying to fit in, trying to people please. And I've experienced the accompanying shame, regret, hesitation, uncertainty, the eroding self-trust, because there is a part of me, the alcohol is going to take the edge off. I'm going to get to bond, connect, belong, feel accepted. And there's a part of me that feels like shit, knows it wrecks my sleep, which trickles into the next day, throws me off my game, takes me off track, and holds me back from doing what I want to do. And I've battled some constant, devil on one side, angel on the other. And the rules that I have found to help me be most effective is simply ingraining it into my identity. And at certain times, it's looked like I don't drink. I only drink when I'm out of the country. I don't travel out of the country that much right now. I got a little boy at home. And, although I've taken him to Costa Rica, we don't have any big international trips on the horizon. But for me, this rule has really become embedded in my identity. And as a result, it makes decisions a lot easier. I mean, think about this. If you have ever been on a diet before and you enjoy great food, the occasional drinks, you step into a different identity when you are dieting. And it's a uniquely relatable identity because 1 billion people are dieting at any given time, and people understand the sacrifices that come with dieting. When you're dieting, I imagine you use that as a tool. Oh, I can't eat this or I can't drink because I'm dieting. People quickly understand, they get it. It's the end of conversation. Do you have that same clarity, ease, and ability to execute when you're not dieting if you still don't want to drink? If you still need to execute discipline around food choices or alcohol choices? Because now you're not dieting. You don't have that crutch or that temporary identity to fall back on. So the problem you've made here is you've only made a rule apply in certain situations with one identity. Whereas what I'm challenging you to do is to get clear on what you want, who you are, what you will and won't stand for, what actions you're currently taking are helping you and giving you energy versus holding you back and depleting your energy, and building rules around that identity, that version of you need to become to get to that next goal. Because really the underlying value here that I'm sharing is that by having a set of rules, you minimize decisions and you reduce decision fatigue. Every decision you make consumes energy. The more decisions you force yourself to make, the more mentally fatigued you become, the more emotionally reactive you become, and the worse your judgment becomes. High performers simplify their lives intentionally by making these decisions proactively. And what I mean by that is, a couple examples: same morning routine, same meals, same workout schedule, protected deep works of get shit done focus time, clear communication boundaries, predetermined standards. All of this is one, big decision. It might consume a lot of energy in the moment to get clarity on that decision. After that, you don't have to make the decision again. That clarity preserves energy in the long term. And that's incredibly valuable because now if you're someone, I'll continue with this example, if I only drink on weekends, you don't have to worry about teetering back and forth, but do I just have a drink, maybe just one on a Thursday night? It's not the weekend. Another simple example, I don't eat after 6 p.m. Again, you don't have to waffle and waste energy emotionally fatiguing yourself deciding, hey, there's a networking event tonight or a get together, doesn't start until 7. I'm not eating. I'm eating before. I just don't eat after 6. That's who I am. And what often happens here is on the outside, a lot of these rules, they seem extreme. A few that come to mind. Jesse Itzler. If you don't know Jesse Itzler, you're missing out. Go connect and follow him on social media. Buy his books, Living with a Seal, Living with Monks. Very successful entrepreneur. He only eats fruit until noon. I thought it was kind of crazy the first time I read about it. His rationale, his reasoning makes sense. Fruit is very easy on the digestive system. Therefore, his goal is to be as energized, effective, clear, and present as possible to begin the day. He only puts fuel in his body that he knows his body can handle with ease. So therefore, it's a very simple rule. I only eat fruit before 12 p.m. It's aligned with what he wants and who he wants to become. Andy Frisella, 75 Hard. I imagine you've heard of it. It's just a simple set of rules. And these rules were intentionally created by him long ago, many years ago at this point, which is funny to say, to help him achieve a goal of losing weight, getting down to a body fat percentage. He had a side wager going on with one of his friends. He had a timeline. And yet these action steps were aligned with helping him to really knock out two birds with one stone, in that he could lose weight and achieve his goal, but also continue crushing it in his business. And what was born was 75 Hard. And it's incredible. I've completed 75 Hard on 4 separate occasions. They are just simply rules to be as effective as possible. And the rules that he's chosen happen to be pretty universally applicable and beneficial to all. So these rules on the outside, they might seem a bit crazy. But you have to be crazy to get to and achieve the level of success you desire. You can't be average. We talked about the pitfalls and the woes of average earlier. You got to have these rules that are aligned with the identity, the version of you that you wish to and need to become. And let me say this clearly. Another year, another quarter of repeating the same pattern of going through your days, your weeks, your months without any clarity on rules that are aligning you with the best version of you. Incredibly costly, incredibly expensive. And if you know that you're capable of more, yet you keep battling hesitation, overthinking, overwhelm, exhaustion, self-sabotage, private one-on-one coaching may be the fastest path forward for you. And if you'd like to explore more about working with me, what building a private one-on-one coaching relationship entails, there are details in the show notes. You can simply apply to work with me. And once I receive your application, if I believe there's a potential great fit opportunity, I'll reach out to you. I remember about 5 years ago, I was attending a graduation dinner for a mastermind I joined. It's called the Modern Day Night Project. Sadly, it doesn't exist, but I do encourage you to Google it. It was like a 75 hours. Let me break you down mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's basically like as close to a Navy SEAL Hell Week as a civilian could get for 75 hours, literally run by a multi 7-figure earner, Bedros Keuilian, a Navy SEAL, a Marine recon sniper, a SWAT instructor, and then another serial entrepreneur who was a black belt in multiple mixed martial art disciplines. Phenomenal experience. Still have some great friends to this day from those 75 hours. But something that stood out to me was on graduation night, we just fucking got our asses kicked for 75 hours and come back bigger, better, stronger. And we're finally there enjoying, a phenomenal steak dinner, all the drinks, all the accoutrements. It's a great time. But the head founder, the guy who started at Bedros, he bounces early. Like literally, it's like 8:30 at night. And I'm like, we're just trying to get the party started. Do you know what we just went through for 75 hours? And, of course he did. Interestingly enough, I'm attending another event as a part of this mastermind months later. We're out in Vegas having fun. We're learning and having some fun as well. Same thing at the later event, he's leaving early. We're at a taco bar one night. I notice he's gone. I see him leave early at another event. And I had the privilege of working one-on-one with Bedros, and I was curious, why? And what he told me was that is how much he prioritizes and protects his sleep. He knows from experience that the worst version of him, the lower levels of him, that are far more likely to be hijacked by emotions, feelings, and ego, comes out quickly when he is lacking in the sleep department. And he has had to learn to put a rule in place that if he is out by 8:30 p.m., and don't quote me on the time, but more or less by 8:30 p.m., it's time to head home. It's time to start the bedtime routine and get a great night of sleep. Because when he fails to do that consistently, the worst, lower form versions of him show up. They sabotage relationships, deals, business, client interactions, and that's not a good place to be. Every rule, just like Bedros' sleep rule, every rule becomes evidence. And that evidence creates and reinforces your identity. There's just a different version of you that is allowed to come forward when you have these rules that are really just reflections of clarity on what it is you do and do not do. For example, I don't drink alcohol during the week. I don't skip workouts. I breathe for 5 seconds before responding to an emotionally charged conversations. I protect my sleep. These are all subtle yet very impactful and significant rules that can be a game changer in your life. And eventually these rules work cohesively. They form a set of systems that allow you to create this operating system that is locked in and aligned with the version of you need to become to achieve your goals. Now, I mentioned earlier with some extreme examples, Jesse Itzler, Andy Frisella, even Bedros' example is rules are going to make you stand out. Rules force differentiation. And most people fear creating these types of rules because they do make you visible. I've talked about it before, but one of the most common fears I help my clients deal with is a fear of standing out. I mean, first and foremost, it's a literal threat because everybody else is wired to be average. And here you are trying to step further and further into being excellent, to being great, to being incredible. And there's an invisible threat that poses an opportunity for resentment, anger, envy, jealousy, or the abandonment of relationships with people you were formerly close with. And then in addition to that, the more you stand out, there's a greater perception of more pressure, responsibility, and expectation that can absolutely destroy and derail people. Rules force you to disappoint people, to say no, stand out, to be misunderstood, to look obsessive. And many people would rather stay exhausted than risk judgment for standing out. And what I need you to hear is that the moment you create rules that protect your peace, productivity, and potential, people benefiting from your lack of boundaries in the past start to become uncomfortable. And again, that can be threatening, can be uncomfortable for you. Yet your peace, your productivity, your potential are all a priority. And you alone are the only person who experiences the consequences of not having rules or not abiding by the rules that you set. And at this point, there might still be a part of you, if you don't have any rules in place or you've struggled with consistent execution, who has a little thought in the back of your head that rules are just too restrictive. No, they are not. Rules are not prison. Think of them as guardrails. Like, guardrails literally exist because engineers understand something very important. Even good drivers drift when conditions get difficult, whether it be rain, fatigue, darkness, distraction. Guardrails exist for the moments you're most likely to lose control. And your personal operating system, your list of rules, operate the exact same way. They protect you during moments of emotional drift. So let's talk about building these rules. I want you to think of your own personal set of rules as the infrastructure to building your high-performance operating system. The set of rules that become a system, an operating system, are designed to create and empower you to function at your best. And I'm going to walk you through a couple steps, a couple prompts, if you will, to help you begin gaining clarity on either creating these rules for the first time or auditing and updating the current list of rules you have. And the first thing you need to do is simply identify patterns especially, but patterns and points of indecision, uncertainty, and sabotage that are showing up in your life. What are these moments and decisions costing you? Physically, financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And is it possible that there could be a rule to protect this, to prevent this from ever happening? In addition to gaining clarity on that, I've said it before, but you need to allow your rules to shape who you wish to become. And to get clear on who it is you need to become or desire to become, you also have to be clear on what it is that version of you does and does not do. You need a clear list of I do not and I do statements. For example, I do not respond immediately to texts and emails. I do not abandon or skip workouts because I'm stressed, overwhelmed, or busy. I do not make emotional decisions. I do not overcommit to avoid disappointing people. I do protect the first 3 hours of my day. I do invest in exercise and self-care daily. I do leave space in my day and my week for rest, recovery, and play. These are a couple examples. These rules need to be applied to the key domains of your life: your fitness, your family, your business, your finances. Every domain of your life, however you break it down, categorize, and organize it, should have a list of rules. And you can get so granular here, and I don't want you to get lost in the weeds. Start with just 5 rules that help you navigate both your days and 1 week at a time, a full Monday through Sunday. What are the handful of 3 to 5 rules that you need to begin abiding by and following to keep you operating at your best, to keep you feeling at your best, remaining clear-headed, locked in, and on path with your goals and the version of you wish to become? The goal is not to control every part of your life. The goal is to protect yourself from the predictable moments when pressure, exhaustion, fear, anxiety, and emotion try to pull you away from who you're trying to become. Because success is not built from your best moments. It's built from the rules that protect you during your worst ones. And the people you know who are operating at the highest levels, they've had these rules in place for a long time, which has allowed them to stop negotiating with themselves, with those emotions, and remain locked in on their path to leveling up. I thank you for listening to today's episode. If you found it valuable, share it. My ask is that you share this episode with another high performer in your circle. And if you haven't done so, leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it goes a long way in supporting the show. It's greatly appreciated. And if this episode resonated with you, take that seriously. It usually means part of you knows it's time for change. Time to create and abide by a specific set of rules designed to help you get unstuck and out of your own way so you can lock in and level up. And if you're ready to accelerate the timeline to ascending to your next level of success, private coaching is the surefire, fast-track way to do that. And I invite you to learn more and to apply for one-on-one private coaching by visiting the link in the show notes below. Thank you again for tuning into another episode of the Unstuck High Performer Podcast.